From when we are born, we form relationships. Relationships with our parents, siblings, and everyone else around us. As we get older, we form new relationships, friendships, and at some point, romantic relationships. For most people, those romantic relationships are formed in the hopes of one day marrying that person. Like all types of relationships, there can be conflict. In fact, without conflict, there is no relationship. Frederick Douglass said, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." Without the conflict or struggle, there is no opportunity to grow and learn. In fact, according to Dr. Larry Nadig, clinical psychologist and marriage and family therapist, relationships without conflict may be unhealthier than ones with frequent conflict due to possible emotional disconnect, issues of trust, and believing that issues can't be resolved. Where there is conflict, there will most likely be arguments, and marriages are no different than any other relationship when it comes to that. So what do most married couples argue about? Who better to ask this question to than actual married couples? We interviewed 5 sets of married couples who have been together for at least 25 years to figure out what they thought was the main thing them and their spouses argue about the most.
The purchase of anything large.
As I said, money.
The children.
Children. Kids.
Not much. Mostly probably how I do things for the kids, maybe.
Money.
Money.
Pug and Nancy Black, who have been married for 56 years from Minnesota, said they used to argue about things such as money issues, parenting, and responsibilities. Now they just argue about silly things. They said they just laugh it off now because neither one of them are right. They also made sure to mention that they never go to bed angry. Along with talking to these married couples, we decided that the next best person we should talk to would be a marriage counselor. Someone who might not experience these arguments firsthand, but get to help talk them through with couples who do. So we sat down with Glennis Shuey, a licensed professional counselor at the Center for Marriage and Family Counseling in Harrisonburg, to get her opinion on what married couples argue about the most.
That one is a little bit hard. Money is certainly one. They fight about family, about in-laws. They fight about sex. And I think often the fights, because they don't communicate very well, often their fights, when you say, well, what started that big fight? And they'll say, I don't know. We don't remember. We naturally have this defense mechanism built in, and depending on our personalities and also kind of what we've seen modeled, it is really easy to get defensive about something somebody put at us that they didn't intend to upset us, but we just get defensive. And I think a lot of arguments that couples have is just people doing that natural defensive thing, and it isn't so much about what they're arguing about, it's the pattern of communication they have developed. And so they can argue about anything.
In Captivate, The Science of Succeeding with People, written by Vanessa Van Edward, behavioral investigator at Human Behavior Research Lab, The Science of People, in 2017, the top 5 issues that married couples argue about include free time, money, housework, physical intimacy, and extended family. So why do these conflicts occur? According to Conflict and Relationship, written by Dr. Rob Pascal and Dr. Lou Primavera in 2016, causes of conflict can include inequalities, which can be explained by the social exchange theory founded by George Homans in 1959 and later developed by Peter Blau and Richard Emerson. Social exchange theory explains social change and stability as a process of negotiated exchanges between parties. Marriage can be looked at as a barter system, each partner trying to get certain benefits from the other. We also understand that there are things of similar value we have to give in return if we're to receive these benefits. Basically, while we might do things for our partner, there are usually strings attached. When partners feel that there is a balance, the amount we give is equal to what we receive, Our relationships feel good. If one partner doesn't feel the relationship is balanced, that becomes reason for confrontation. Other causes are crisis situations, entering into a new life stage such as starting a family, where pressure one is feeling can put a strain on the relationship, miscommunication due to lack of active listening, and Mary Ann Fitzpatrick mentions in her book Between Husbands and Wives, Volume 7 from 1988, Power and Different Types of Marriages, where partners attempt to dominate or to submit to their spouse can lead to conflict.
I think a lot of it comes back to the individual and how well they have learned to handle something that doesn't fit what they think and feel. And if you haven't learned kind of coping techniques to deal with things that come at you that you don't agree with or make you uncomfortable or raise your anxiety, then you just blow up. And a lot of it is that. Often it's situational. Often it depends on, what is particularly happening in their home, in their family, in their relationship at that time. And then again, a lot of it is just they don't handle conflict very well. So many couples just do not have very good communication skills. Now, those are the people I see. I'm sure there's lots of couples out there with good communication skills. They don't come see me.
According to a video from the Gottman Institute in 2010, marriage and family counselor Dr. John Gottman stated that 69% of marriage conflicts are never solved. That means that couples have the same fight over and over again. He calls these unresolved issues gridlocks. A study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships by Carol Pistol in 1989 titled Attachment in Adult Romantic Relationships, Styles of Conflict Resolution and Relationship Satisfaction, indicated that those considered to have a secure attachment style were more likely to use a compromising or integrating strategy. That is, integrating their ideas with those of their partner to come up with a joint decision, than those considered to have avoidant or anxious attachment styles. Lin Shi states in their journal, The Association Between Adult Attachment Styles and Conflict Resolution in Romantic Relationships from 2003, partners with an anxious or preoccupied attachment style have a strong tendency to exercise pressure on their partners and display greater hostility. Anxiety over abandonment has been related to use of blame, threats, physical and verbal aggression, which leads to lack of mutual discussion and understanding. Dr. Larry Nadig mentioned in his Relationship Conflict, Healthy or Unhealthy, from 2010, some good and bad ways to deal with conflict resolution. Oftentimes, couples will avoid and deny the existence of a conflict, or get mad and blame the other person, and these ways of conflict resolution can often become manipulative. Clearly, these aren't the ways you and your partner want to try and fix your issues. Dr. Nadig also mentioned healthy solutions such as win-win, no-lose, and win-lose. All three having to deal with finding alternative answers that you and your partner both agree on and making compromises that are okay with both parties.
Oh, good question. I guess I'm kind of like, I guess they get solved by either not doing what I said I was going to do for the kids, or, God, that's a tough one. I don't know. It's kind of like they just kind of go away.
They do nothing. They go unresolved.
Well, I think they get resolved because I would say we argue, kind of discuss more, not really argue, but talk about money. And then we just come to a kind of a, we solve the problem, just say if he's spending too much money in something, well, so you better watch whatever you spend. Or we have to cut on things to be able to fix the problem.
Sometimes they get solved and sometimes not.
As the kids are getting older, the expenses are going down, so there is less discussion about the financial stage involving the kids, I think.
Right.
I think we just discussed now is financial, but just for the future for the two of us.
Well, the more experience you get at it, the better you get, you
Far
know.
more.
Obviously, as couples get older and their kids leave home, there's less tension there. But sex and money can continue right through. And I say this over and over and over to every couple I ever sit with, I guess. Learn to be a good listener and learn to listen in spite of the anxiety that comes up when you hear something that doesn't fit your picture of the way things are. When it's not your feelings, it's not your thoughts. Can you listen? And if you can be a good listener and validate the other person's feelings and thoughts, something that feels this big gets this big. And it shifts in size for the person that you're listening to. You know, they come at you with this awful thing you're doing, whatever. And if you can simply take in what they're thinking and what they're feeling and hold your anxiety in check, because it does make you anxious to hear things you don't agree with, or to hear someone say that you've hurt their feelings or you've made them angry. It's hard to sit and hold that anxiety and just to say, oh, okay, I didn't understand that. I'm sorry, that wasn't what I intended, but you know what? I accept that that's what this was for you. If you can be a good listener, which will validate what they're thinking and feeling, then you can just bring conflicts way down. Good luck. It's hard to do because it's not our default. It's not our go-to.
Arguing is when you end up really mad at each other. That's arguing. Besides that, it's just discussions, talking about things.
You know, disagree, or he thinks I'm crazy about something, but it doesn't bother him enough to cause an argument. Is that what I'd probably agree on that.
Like I chew too loud.
Yeah, it smacks me with cheese. But that's not an argument to me.
No.
It's more of a
Annoyance.
What annoys you about your partner? That might be a better question. Let's see what else. But anyway, I just think when I think of arguments, I think people fighting, yelling, screaming, walking out, and driving away. That's an argument to me. And that's
Right.
When I was growing up, my parents used to do that. And I think that was something I just want to know part of. Just kills your heart.
There really seems to be something about the 7-year itch. If couples have been married 7 years, it's interesting. And not that, in other words, this is purely anecdotal. I have no statistics, but you hear, well, often a lot of couples have problems when they've been married 7 years. And just every once in a while, a couple comes in and I'll say, well, how long have you been married? 7 years. It isn't that unusual to get that. And I'm not quite sure what's happening there. And sometimes there's kids involved and sometimes there's not. Maybe it takes that 7 years for all the glow to go off the relationship. And then you see, is this relationship just based on emotion and feeling? Or is this relationship grounded on something much more solid, where when the flutters in the stomach and the hot sex and all that go away, we still want to be together? So maybe 7 years is where that gets sorted out a little bit. I don't know.
In Gary Chapman's The 5 Love Languages from 1995, he quotes the Bible saying that the tongue has the power of life and death. In this context, the words you say and how you communicate can give life to your relationship or end them. Knowing some possible triggers for arguments between married couples and ways to solve them can be very useful if you find yourself in similar situations. But knowing how to properly and effectively communicate to solve these issues is what will make the difference.